Hello, welcome to Revive and Rise. I'm your host, Melodie Parris, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today. So, for the month of December, our theme is family dysfunction and the trauma it can cause. And I thought this was a very good thing to have around the holidays when there's so much stress and there's so much pressure on being with your family members and with other people that you're in relationships with. The dysfunction and the trauma that it causes doesn't necessarily have to be with family members. There's many other relationships and things that are going on. It may be a romantic relationship, a friendship, or, a competitive relationship that you've had in your community. There's lots of stress with people going home for the holidays, being around all kinds of people that you're not normally around. There's so much stress with people having to feel like they have to look a certain way or act a certain way or show up in certain forms or fashions. So this, needless to say, the holidays are a great joyous time, but they're also very stressful for a lot of people. And let's remember as well that there are so many people that are doing without in these seasons, without the things that they need, the basic human needs, without civil rights, without their identities being acknowledged. There are so many people that are experiencing so much emotional neglect and so many other things. So we need to keep those things in mind that, Christmas movies and all of these things that are just wow about Christmas may not be wow for everybody. And what you see on TV may not be what another person experiences. So I wanted to start the conversation with just some statistics that I found very interesting, that they were really so high. So I do want to bring this to everybody's attention that since these statistics are so high, I feel like that lets you know that you're not alone. You're not alone in the frustration. You're not alone in the dysfunction. Everything is not perfect around the holidays. And that may be your reality, that may not be your reality, but the fact is that you're not alone in that reality. So 74% of people in this country find holidays very stressful. And there were 64% with mental conditions that say it worsens around the holidays. 55% call Christmas the most stressful holiday. 51% report feeling lonely, even with people surrounding them. Remember, feeling lonely and loneliness is not always being without people. Feeling lonely is an emotion, and you can feel lonely when you're surrounded by a room full of people. So let's keep that in mind while we're talking about these things. 70% of people in this country feel pressure to appear happier than they are. And this is so true with social media and, people around you in the community. You want to appear happy, right? Because your next door neighbor's happy, or the person across the street's happy, or your coworkers are happy. You don't want to let people know how miserable you are, or the troubles that you're having. So we have to put on the smile and appear happy and joyful. 70%. That was just eye-opening to me. 50% of the people in this country are worried about being able to afford holiday gifts for their families. 46% of the people of this country are concerned about political conflicts with their families. 46%. That's astounding to me. 38% of the people in this country use negative coping mechanisms like isolation, overeating, or substance use to help calm the pressure that they feel. And so just those few statistics at least helped me to see how prevalent family dysfunction can be, and how we're not really alone in this struggle. There's so many things that are coming against the relationships that we are in, be it familial, be it spousal, be it friendship, be it just the people in your community. There's competition and competitive natures of people. There's comparison that goes on. And then there's things like, oppression and discrimination. There are differences in views and perspectives of things that can lead to arguments. And there's, in so many families, especially now, it seems in the current, and I won't even say political environment, just the current environment that we live in right now, it just seems like everyone's on edge and everyone's on tiptoes, walking around trying not to come into conflict with people. It's like we've lost how to have conversations, right? We've lost the value of different views and different perspectives. And that's really hurting all of our relationships that we're in, because we can't respect each other. And there's an idea that we have to be right. Our way is the only way. And that's such a painful and hurtful way to be, because it's important for us to discuss things with each other, and it's important for us to have differing ideas and differing perspectives of things and be able to talk to each other about it. That's why you have relationships with people in the first place, right? So I want to first, talk about toxic relationships. And that's, again, any relationship that is toxic, quote unquote, considered toxic. Those relationships display harmful behaviors such as angry outbursts, manipulation, boundary violations, and abuse. They say holidays are when there's a dramatic increase of domestic violence. And the shelters experience like a great growth in the amount of people that come seeking solace within the shelter. So when we talk about toxic behaviors, you know, those kinds of behaviors can be very, very small, starting very, very small, or they can be just this big blow up of something. But regardless, they're all harmful. And, I was reading something that talked about whether it was better to die from one single blow, or whether it was better to die of 1,000 small blows. And, but the end result is either way, you end up dead, whether it's one big event or whether it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of small events. So it's important for us to remember that, especially when comparing, because we are human beings, and sometimes for whatever reason we don't mean to, but we still, just out of our human nature, we compare things. And a lot of times we compare how our difficulties stack up to others' difficulties, even when we do it even before we know that we're doing it. So that's what makes it difficult too, because it's our instinct. We do it before we even know we do it sometimes. So when we think about these toxic behaviors, some things can be just a simple comment that can a lot of times go unnoticed or downplayed, unless you're the person that comment is directed to. When you're talking about things with a group of people, this is just an example. You're talking about things with a group of people, and someone says, "Well, I did that for you. I don't know why you won't do that for me." It's just a sly comment, but the person that it's directed to, it can really hurt them, and it can really bring up and trigger a lot of things that they think about. It can bring up a lot of guilt and shame. And, over the years, when that adds up, it does become a lot. So it can be something simple like those little comments that are simple like that, or little comments like, "Well, you could have been better at this," or "You should have done this. I don't know why you didn't do this better or do that better," or maybe it's something like a boundary violation, like you have a specific time limit or time frame that you have designated, and for whatever reason, the other individual or individuals just start to make you feel guilty and try and manipulate you to break that boundary, you know. So it can be things like that, or it can be like, it can be a violent blow up where between two persons, where one is stricken or one is yelled at, screamed at, Maybe things are, items of whatever nature are thrown. It could be any of those things. But all of those things are very toxic behaviors. And I feel like, sometimes we're able to steer clear of those behaviors. But it feels like when we're around the holiday season, for whatever reason, be it desire, be it guilt, be it a million other emotions, we feel that we need to be around certain people around the holidays. A lot of times that's family, and a lot of times when you are around your family, that also means you're around that community, and that can bring up other different triggers, emotions, dysfunction. So, and that even brings into the equation places. Maybe there is a specific place in your hometown or around the neighborhood that your parents or family members are living at the moment, that something really drastic happened to you. And you don't want to go there because you'll be reminded of it, but yet you feel like you have to because you want to see them. So there's so many reasons and things that we feel like we have to do that. And there's so many situations that we put ourselves in around the holidays. And so I wanted to briefly talk about, briefly or not, we'll see how this goes, but talk about things that we can do to help. Things that we can do to maybe either cut down on the dysfunction of these relationships, or cut down on the situations or the effects that could stem from these interactions. So one thing that we really need to do is, we need to prepare ourselves for the visit as much as we can. There are surprises and things that that come up. You can never be totally 100% prepared for anything, but let's prepare as much as we can for what could or what possibly will happen. And one thing is to manage your expectations. And we need to be realistic with ourselves. We need to really just sit for a moment and think about what's in our head and what that means. And when I talk about managing your expectations, okay, for example, if you're going home and you think, oh, well, I'm going home, I'm taking my 4 kids, but I'm going to pack these 3 or 4 books because I really am expecting to sit by the fire every day at some point and read, chapters in these books, and along with everything else. That's not really a good expectation, right? I mean, you're probably, depending on how long you're going to be there, but I'd find it that most people, regardless of what's going on, would find it very difficult to read 4 or 5 books in a given period, a short time. So that would be an unattainable expectation or an unrealistic expectation. Let's say that. I shouldn't say unattainable. But if you look at the situation and you look at what you're planning to at least accomplish, well, I have my 4 children. I am planning to go to my parents, and I'm planning to see my siblings and cousins, and I'll be there for 4 days. And so realistically, I'm just not going to plan anything. We're just going to have time with our family and see how it goes. That's a more realistic expectation if you say to yourself, well, I am planning on getting there before lunch on this date, but no matter what, maybe I'll get there a little earlier, maybe a little later, but no matter what, I have to leave by 3 o'clock on this date. No matter what, that is dead set. And you just make those kinds of expectations. And, if you, depending on, where you're going, the location that you're going to, or just the environment that it's going to be in, you can't really expect it. I mean, it's just as simple as if you're going to Florida, you can't expect to build snowmen on Christmas. If you're going to Vermont, you can't expect to go out wearing shorts and flip-flops. Those kinds of things. You need to really focus on, look at your environment, look at around you. Wherever you're going, if there's community members, if there's old friends or things like that, different relationships that you may interact with. If you know that ahead of time, then just prepare for it. And I don't mean any elaborate preparation. Just kind of keep that in the back of your mind that, oh yeah, I may run into this person, and this is what may happen, and it may bring up all these different feelings or emotions, and I just need to prepare myself for that so I don't blow up at them or I don't do something ridiculous. But that's what's important for us to manage those expectations that we have and be realistic and just be genuine with yourself. Do you think that you're really going to be making Christmas cookies and wrapping presents while you're singing Christmas carols in the living room? Do you really think that, or is that just a desire? So just keep those things in mind. The next thing that I'd like to talk about is trying to control your responses. We as human beings cannot control what happens to us. The only thing that we can control is our response. So, and this is the difficult part, because it's so difficult to control yourself when you're in a situation when someone is irritating you or aggravating you or, pushing all your buttons and whatever. And it's very difficult to just not blow up. It's very difficult when people say things to just not burst out in tears or start sobbing. And all of these emotions, I'm not saying not to feel it. Go ahead and feel the sadness and feel the anger, and feel those emotions, but just don't act on it. And one thing that you can do, I feel like, one thing that I do when people start to say things that, well, for one, that either I know is untrue, or that they say just to irritate me, or get a response somehow from me. One thing I do is that I just go somewhere in my imagination. I go someplace where I was really happy. And usually that's in nature somewhere, whether it's a waterfall or a mountain or an ocean or just a nice green space, cornfields. There's so many sunrises, sunsets. There's so many beautiful things that you can think about, or just something that you saw. Maybe you want to go to Italy, or maybe you want to go to Rhode Island, or maybe you want to go to this new restaurant down the road. There's so many different things and so many different experiences that we can think about. And that's what I do. I just take myself back to a place where I remember a joyful feeling, and I just let that feeling hold me until the person's done. And sometimes it's a hard thing because, they'll check to see if you are listening, or they'll check to see if you are following them. But I think that usually distracts me enough and usually keeps me in the right headspace to be able to deal with the other part of that. And that's just something that I do. There's so many different things that you can do. You can get up and leave the room. You can just go outside and get some fresh air, go for a walk. You can go and get a drink of water. You can just go into your room, into another space, and do something that you enjoy. Maybe start listening to some music, reading a little bit. There's just so many different things. Start doing maybe some stretches that helps you calm down. I just recently heard that one way to calm yourself down when you're really anxious, that they've done research on and found was a huge benefit, was to take your hand and just put it over your heart, and like not over the shirt, but put it on your skin, so skin to skin, and just breathe, and just feel yourself breathe, and just it just helps calm yourself down. Give yourself a minute or so in that state, and it really does help you. So those are a couple things that I feel like can definitely help. Another thing that we can try and do is to limit the conflict. If you know something is already, you know that there's these hot button topics, or there's these things that you don't want to discuss, you should not discuss, just steer clear of those things. Just stay away from talking about those things to whoever that's going to bother. And sometimes you have people in your people groups that may know that bothers you, but want to get a reaction out of you. So sometimes they'll just start to talk about things that they know are going to bother you. You know, we all have those people too. And my suggestion to that is to first, say, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about that. Just politely say, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about that. And if that doesn't work, then just leave the room. Just leave the room and come back a few minutes later, however long it takes, for you to just calm down again and for the other person to calm down again. And then, talk about something else. If it happens again, then just say, okay, I'm going to leave for a while because I do not want to talk about this. I said I don't want to talk about this. And until you can respect me in that, I'm going to leave for a little bit. And so just leave the whole area. If that's leaving the house, whatever that is. And then, it's up to you. And it's whatever you choose. You could come back or you could not. That's totally up to the person. But I would definitely suggest those kinds of things. Or, limiting the conflict could just be, not showing up, not going, just choosing not to do that, not to be around those people. Sometimes, I had a pastor in Charleston say something during one of their sermons, and it revolutionized the way I thought and the way I think about myself and relationships. And they said, sometimes it's better to love people from afar. And I have found that, loving people from afar cuts out on so much conflict and so much drama, and so many things that will get you all worked up, all anxious, all angry, all fearful. And you don't want to live in that kind of state. You don't want to live like that. It's so much more freeing not to. And if you have to make that choice, because you will have a better relationship with these people from afar than from constantly doing and constantly running and constantly being there, then I suggest to you that's the best thing to do, is love those people from afar. Or you can just choose to never talk to people again. That's the beauty of it, right? We are human beings and we do have a choice. Even when we don't think we do, you always have a choice. And if you feel like you don't, then you've been manipulated to feel that way. And that's a whole different subject. But that would be my suggestion for, limiting conflict of these things these situations. And the last thing that I thought of that may be able to help is to practice self-care. Now, I'm still working with this. I talk to my therapist regularly and trying to determine what self-care looks like. Self-care, self-love. Those are my two big things that I think one person should have, but they're also the two biggest things that I struggle with because I don't understand exactly what they are. But when I talk about self-care, I'm talking about doing things for yourself. Um, sometimes it does mean buying yourself something. Buying that extra glass of wine or getting that that piece of cake because you want it, or buying that new shirt because you think it would go really good with the pants you just bought. Those kind of things, that's self-care. But also you have things like walking and reading, doing things you enjoy, going fishing, all these different things are self-care. Also, not doing things is also self-care. Like if you notice that you're in a stressful situation, it's okay occasionally to use food as a comfort mechanism, but don't make it a habit. Because there's other things that you can do that are more healthy. And those are ways that you can care for yourself. Being healthy, taking the right medications that you would need to take to help yourself. Drinking water is a great thing, a great way to self-care. Having meditation practices, that's good self-care. Exercise is another good self-care. Anything that you can do to care for yourself. Going and taking a nice hot shower. That's self-care. Getting cozy into your favorite cozy warm pajamas. That's self-care too. Snuggling up under a blanket. Those are all important forms of self-care. And I think those are very important to do when we're in highly stressful situations. And if that looks like, stepping away from all of the entertainment for a minute, all of the hustle and bustle for a minute, wherever you are, and just taking a breath, if that looks like going into the living room or into your bedroom and snuggling up, if that looks like, sitting down and watching your favorite movie or your favorite TV series, for a little bit, whatever that looks like, or if it looks like just getting out a jar of peanut butter and just, going to town, all of those things. So, I would like for us to just think about these things, and this includes me as well. I'm not just talking to you, I'm talking to me as well. But I would like for us to think about all these things as we're getting into the Christmas season. And as we're getting into the holidays, the big holidays, then comes New Year's. We've just come through Thanksgiving, and it's wonderful. These holidays are wonderful, for some, but they're not for others, and that's okay. You have both. And then for some people, these holidays bring both emotions, horrible and joyous. you know, so it all depends. There's no right way to do these holiday seasons. There's no right way to do things or to feel about things. People can't just say, oh, you should be happy because of this. Oh, you should be thankful. Oh, you should be joyous because of this, because you can't tell people how to feel. And we're all different. And so let's just remember that. And, let's just have a little grace, both for others, but more importantly for ourselves. Because, at least for me, it's easy to have grace for others, but it's very difficult for me to have grace for myself. Some people feel that way, some people don't. That's just how I am. That's how I'm built. So, but I'd like to wish everyone a happy holiday, however you choose to, spend it, whatever your beliefs or holidays that you follow, the traditions that you follow. And I want to just thank you for listening today and always. And just remember that no matter what, you do not have to suffer alone. Thank you.